All right, so now we are ready to start rendering. So we're going to go ahead and do a save if we haven't yet. And now we need to set up our render settings. So make sure that you definitely watch the lecture going over what rendering is and the basis and thought process. But for this project, we are going to immediately go to our render settings. So Windows, rendering editor, render settings. We're going to make sure that we are rendering using RenderMan, and then we're going to go to the RenderMan tab. Inside of here, we're not going to mess with anything. Let me say that again. We are not going to mess with anything because putting the wrong number in somewhere can actually result in either it not rendering out at good quality or actually rendering for days at a time or just never rendering ever. So instead, like with a lot of things with RenderMan, we are going to use presets. So we're going to go up to here and go to presets, import render settings, user, and then we have a few options. One, draft, that is going to be your preview quality if you're trying to make adjustments and figure out what's going on. By default, that should be what RenderMan is at. Next is intermediate. This is the baseline that you want to do for your final render. Most of you are going to do this because some of y'all will probably get done on or close to the deadline day, and you want to get a render out that looks good but doesn't take a long time. Some of you may be getting done a lot earlier, which you can actually pump it over to production. All right, production will give you a better looking quality, but it will obviously take longer. Do not do production high because that, depending on some cases and some models, can actually take hours to like a day or two. So you do not want to risk that chance. So for this project, we're just going to go ahead and hit intermediate. It's going to go ahead and populate all that right there. Do not worry about this issue that pops up. It's just because the preset's trying to enter in a value to a setting that doesn't exist anymore. So with that said, we're going to hit close. Now, to do a final render, we do not do it in this window because even though we have a resolution gate going on, this is not 1920 by 1080. Actually, my whole entire screen capture right here, that's 1920 by 1080. So this right here is a fraction of this. Also, the rendering that we've been doing inside the viewport has been something called the IPR, which is an interactive form of rendering, but it's very, very low quality. Instead, we want to go up to the RenderMan tab and click what looks like the eye. This will open up the It renderer. If this is your first time opening it, especially if you're on Windows or maybe even Mac, it may ask you to give it permissions. I'm just going to hit allow. And we're just going to scale this out. All right, now that we did that, we're going to go right here and click R. And that will start the rendering process. And we can go ahead and scroll out so we can kind of see what's going on. As we're rendering, you'll see these little blue boxes start spawning out more and more and more. And what they're doing is just looking at our surface and figuring out where it needs more and more samples. And it'll keep on doing that until it finally hits that max sample range that we set for it, and then it'll stop rendering. For this right here, it was about 23. So if I wanted to, let's kind of go ahead and I'm just going to discard this for now. But we want to go up to, and I'm just going to do this for just my own curiosity. You do not have to do this. I'm just going to go right here to import user, and I'll do production so you can get an idea of what the difference is. So if we go right here, go ahead and open this up again and hit render and let it render. As you can see, it's going to take longer to render, but it'll give us a higher quality image. And now our render is done. And as you can see, even with production quality, it is looking pretty good, but also at the same time, it is about 10 times to 11 times more of a longer render than the intermediate one. So, and really the trade-off between quality is not really there to make up for that time. Now, if you do have time, definitely do production, but if you are running up to the deadline, intermediate is more than capable to give you the quality that you are looking for. And you can always re-render out later. But with that said, we're just going to take our render that we have right here, and we need to save it out to bring it into Photoshop to do our final composite. So to do that, we need to go first to catalog, and we need to burn in mapping on save. That is because there are such things as color spaces, which is how different programs and monitors read color. It can actually show, the color red differently on one monitor compared to Photoshop or compared to Nuke. So we have to make sure that we are in the proper color space and burning that information in. That way, when we take this into Photoshop, it looks the way that we're seeing right here in our IT renderer. So again, catalog, make sure that this is checked. Next, we need to export our file. So go right here to export. We need to navigate to our image folder. Inside of here, LegoMan image, we're going to name this LegoMan render. And then we're going to save it as a PNG, as seen right here, and hit save. All right, now that we did that, now we are ready to take this into Photoshop and do our final composite for turn-in.